Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We've been saying it the last couple of weeks and months. This Notre Dame program on the recruiting trail, it just feels a little bit different than we've seen this program operate in the past. We kind of used the example, hey, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame because he didn't feel like he could pull in top 5 classes consistently. Goes to LSU. Marcus Freeman takes over. This is the benefit of having not only a coach that is winning football games on the field, but has the charisma and gravitational pull that Marcus Freeman has. Like, hey, Brian Kelly, great football coach, won a lot of football games for Notre Dame, but let's just be real about it. Not necessarily a guy that you love to talk to. Kind of felt like a little bit of a wet blanket at times. Marcus Freeman, the complete opposite. Could we venture out and say that this 2026 class could maybe be program changing for Notre Dame? Like the young talent that's coming into this program, yes, it's going to win a lot of football games over the next couple of years, but is this the 2026 class that catapults Notre Dame to the next level of talent acquisition? And what I mean by that is, look, Notre Dame's always been solid on the recruiting trail, but they've rarely, cracked the top 5 and cracked the upper echelon of the programs when it comes to talent acquisition. Is this the class that can change the narrative of Notre Dame? And look, I know there are a lot of probably opposing fans that point out, look, we've seen Notre Dame get hot. We've seen them build some momentum on the recruiting trail in the summer and then have it peter off coming into the fall, coming into signing day. I think Notre Dame fans probably agree with this. It feels a little bit different. Like the guys that are highlighted in red on our board right now, they feel like they're locked in. You feel like most of these guys are going to be signing their papers with Notre Dame come the beginning of December. Why is that the case? Look, I think there's two things to probably note. Number one, Notre Dame's checking off all the boxes. We've talked about this a lot. It starts with the off the field stuff. I feel like what Notre Dame can offer you more than just a football player. We all know that. But as a football program, we're playing our young talent. We're developing our young talent. They're going to the NFL, and we're competing at the highest level of the sport. That 2024 season was a season that checked every box that a kid at the high school ranks is looking for in their collegiate program. And then to go along with that, it's funny how winning on the football field, having a charismatic head coach, look, the money's going to follow. I think it's probably fair to say at times Notre Dame probably lost some recruitments because of NIL. I don't like to comment on that too much, but I will say this. It feels like Notre Dame's NIL efforts feel a little bit different, a little bit more funds to be used, a little bit more ammo in the clip. Why is that? Because I think you, one, are winning football games, and two, you have a head coach that people want to support. Now, where does Notre Dame sit right now? What do we love about this class in 2026? Where are they going over the next couple of weeks? That's the conversation I want to get into. I'm going to highlight some players that, we haven't talked about yet that I think are difference makers. Before we get into it, as always, to the Notre Dame fans and a lot of new Notre Dame listeners who've been riding with the boys the last couple of weeks, y'all know how much fun I've had breaking down these commitments. The amount of support that y'all have shown the boys has been amazing. If y'all are new, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Look, we got these names that are not highlighted in red, that are still targets for Notre Dame. You feel good about a lot of these guys potentially committing to Notre Dame relatively soon. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. I just want to start with this. Like, what do I like about this class? Number one, it's the number 2 recruiting class in the country right now at the end of June. The average player committed is a 92.4. That is essentially around a top 130 nationally ranked player that's committed to Notre Dame. That average is extremely high for the amount of commitments that Notre Dame has. You got 4 in the top 50, 13 in the top 250 nationally. It's a big chunk of the top 250 players at the high school level coming to Notre Dame. Individually, what do we like? To me, it starts with the identity of this football team, and that is you got 2, I think, really good running backs in Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton, running behind a 6-man offensive line class. And look, Marcus Freeman knows this. And this was something we talk about with Chad Bowden at USC a lot too. Get these kids at the high school ranks. If you want to have good line of scrimmage play, You cannot rely on the transfer portal. Here's the thing. You might look at Notre Dame's offensive line class and say, hey, it's not like these guys are all top 100 ranked guys. That's one of those positions that I kind of just, for lack of better terms, throw out the window when it comes to recruiting rankings. This Notre Dame staff, what they've done evaluating guys on the offensive line, picking and choosing the players that they think are going to be successful at Notre Dame, their evaluations have been money, have been elite, have been some of the best in the country, if not the best, when it comes to picking and choosing the guys on the offensive line. I don't care what they're ranked in 24/7 Sports or On3, and I think they do a great job. That's not an anti-24/7 Sports or On3 ranking. All I'm saying is I trust this Notre Dame staff in terms of the offensive lineman coming in. I think one of the best examples, a guy like Anthony Knapp. Look, well, I think we broke down the commitment of Anthony Knapp coming out of high school and said, hey, probably going to take a couple of years. Not the case. Like what Notre Dame does, how they view these guys and what they look for, it's working. And so I'm not too concerned about the lowly ranked guys on the offensive line because Notre Dame has showed us time and time again. Don't really matter. The guys they take are the guys that play and the guys that play damn well. The other thing that I really like here, and it's been you got Mike Mickens and this staff, the secondary class it's the best secondary class in the country. I think it's headlined by a guy like Joey O'Brien, who you've seen the Kyle Hamilton comps. And look, am I going to get up here and say Joey O'Brien's going to be Kyle Hamilton? I think that would be aggressive. I will say this kid's going to be a difference maker, and he's probably going to play a very similar role to what Kyle Hamilton did. You can play him as a nickel. You can play him as a deeper third safety. You can walk him into the box. There is nothing that Joey O'Brien can't do at that safety spot. That's been a specialty for Notre Dame. You look at the impact a guy like Xavier Watts had. Hey, we're going to force our safeties to do a lot. They're going to have a lot of responsibility. We're going to put a lot on their plate. Well, you need the guys to do it. Man, do I think Joey O'Brien can. And look, I think Aiden Pouncey can too. Doesn't get as much national media attention. This is a damn good football player from Florida too. Then you have a guy in Kerry Adams, who to me, I think is going to be probably the highest upside of any guy in the secondary. And that means something because I think Joey O'Brien's a dude. I mean, Kerry Adams, extremely long arms, 10.7 in the 100-meter dash. That secondary class to me is absolutely elite. And now you feel great about the pass catchers. You feel good about the second level defenders. Y'all know how I feel about Rodney Dunham. We're checking off a lot of boxes. Well, hey, what is the position we still got to get right here? I think it starts with the defensive line. When you talk about, hey, what's next? Elijah Golden down in the state of Florida, I feel it has to be the top priority for Notre Dame, right? Just like we talked about the offensive line, these big bodies are very difficult to grab in the transfer portal. They're going to be very expensive, and there's just not that many good ones, and everybody's looking for them. You want to have strong defensive line play. You want to have elite defensive line play. And I'll say this, national championship teams, Ohio State, and then Michigan, and then the Georgia teams in the early 2020s, they all have one thing in common, is defensive line play, and it's elite. Elijah Golden, this kid, really fun. Now, is he a little bit maybe of a project? Yeah, sure. 6'5", 275, has to probably put on a little bit more weight. There's plenty of frame for him to get up to 310 comfortably. Length and athleticism. I think there's a lot technically that needs to get better with Elijah Golden, but I pointed at Elijah Golden saying, hey, we betting on him. We betting on those traits every single day of the week. Number two, and here's the other thing I'll say, these pass catchers. I'm really excited to see what the wide receiver room looks like for Notre Dame. I've been vocal. The reason I'm believing in Notre Dame in 2025, well, there's a lot of them. And, it starts with the run game and it starts with what we think is going to be on the defensive side of the football. The thing that separates Notre Dame this year, as opposed to the last couple of years, the pass catchers. I think Notre Dame has the top 10 wide receiver room in the country, arguably, going into the 2025 year. Well, Notre Dame wants to continue to build these difference makers and add these difference makers to their roster. And you got a couple of names that intrigue you. We're going to talk about two of them. I'll say this with Devin Fitzgerald. I'm betting on that last name, and I'm betting on that bloodline every single day of the week. Caden Finley. If you're a real sicko and you watched Caden Finley and you knew Jaden Greathouse coming out of high school, does this kid not just remind you a little bit of Jaden Greathouse? 4-star wide receiver from the state of Texas. There maybe is not that one elite trait that you point to? Like, is he the biggest? No. Is he the fastest? No. We said all the same things about Jaden Greathouse. What do they both have in common? They're well-rounded pass catchers that were extremely productive down in the state of Texas at the high school ranks. I look at Caden Finley. You're saying the same things that you said about Jaden Greathouse, right? He's 6 foot. He's 200 pounds. Really smooth mover for the size. Can win vertically. Can win yards after the catch. Has a really developed route tree. Has the ability to attack a defense at all three levels, which is rare. Like, you don't have a lot of guys that aren't just – most of these kids out of high school are just vertical guys. And Caden Finley, you turn on the film and say he's doing it all. He's working in the middle of the field. He's producing after the catch. You talk about another heavy hitter win, too, going down in the state of Texas. And I believe Caden Finley has family connections to the Texas Longhorns. And you go down into the state of Texas and go grab a guy like Caden Finley, that just shows you the way Notre Dame's moving on the trail. And then here's another one, another state of Texas kid, Braden Robinson, trending to Notre Dame. 5'8", 160. He's small, and he is 10'4", 7 in the 100-meter dash. I mean, one of the fastest players in the class, elite yards after the catch ability. You would like to see a little bit more of a developed route tree from him. He's a guy that can beat you yards after the catch, and he can beat you vertically. You probably want to see a little bit more development in terms of the overall route tree. I'm betting on yards after the catch every single day of the week. When you have guys that can change a game with the football in their hand every time they have the ball in their hand, like Braden Robinson can, betting on a kid like him too. Look, is Notre Dame going to take all three of these guys and bring in 5 wide receivers? I'm not sure. I think all of them can produce at Notre Dame. Look, we're kind of – Notre Dame's got the bulk of their class committed, and now they're just kind of going big game hunting, trying to put the finishing touches on this class. And excuse me, you feel like they're in a really good spot to close this class really effectively. And we're used to seeing Notre Dame be in the top 5, finish around 10. It's hard to see them not being a top 5 class in the country, finishing the 2026 cycle. Really, yeah. And I'm a Michigan fan. I'll say this, as a Michigan fan, I feel the same way. Look, Michigan, Notre Dame, they win on the football field plenty in the fall. But it's normally not always the most fun program to follow on the recruiting trail. Like both Michigan and Notre Dame, we move in a little bit differently when it comes to the off-season recruiting storylines, and it's fun. And I'll say that y'all see a smile on my face. It's been fun talking this team on the recruiting trail. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.